Hi guys, so I decided to do my video outside today because it's so nice outside that I didn't want to be inside. I'm hoping that the sound is okay and that it's not too windy. I'm not high tech at all, so figuring out how to drown out exterior noise and stuff, not my thing. So maybe my 14-year-old will educate me on that. But anyway, so been talking to you guys about mental health. And as a psychologist, I know a little bit about it. So like I said, I was trained secularly. I didn't go to Bible college or any kind of seminary or anything like that. I came to the Lord later in life. So the way that I counseled, the way that I was taught to counsel, changed a lot when I got saved. So that's what I want to talk about today, a little bit of how counseling looks, at least the way that I do it from a biblical perspective. So let's talk first about what you learn in school. When I was trained, and it's still the case, that cognitive behavioral therapy is considered the gold standard. Many of you have probably heard of that, if not experienced cognitive behavioral therapy for yourselves. But that's how I was trained. It's considered the gold standard for most things, for the treatment of anxiety and depression and addictions and relationship problems, and across the board it's often considered just what we do for people. So let's talk about what is that. Well, this guy named Albert Ellis and Aaron T. Beck, around that time, late 40s, early 50s, came up with this treatment model. And basically what they said, I'm sorry, I'm messing with my hair here. Basically what they said is that there are three things that are involved when we're talking about negative emotion. And when I say negative, I just mean those emotions that we don't really like having. They aren't bad, because really God gave us all of our emotions, right? They all serve a function. They have their purpose and their place. But what happens because of sin and the fallen world that we live in, those emotions can go awry. And then we can start experiencing them at inappropriate times when you really shouldn't be experiencing them. So when we talk about negative emotion, I'm talking about sadness, anger, fear, jealousy. Those are all things that, again, given in the right context, being occurring at the right time and place, are good. If I'm in the middle of the woods and I see a bear coming at me, I feel afraid. It causes me to run or defend myself, right? That I don't think is a good option with a bear. But anyway, it would cause me to run. So that's a good thing. That fear is good in that moment. When I feel that kind of fear and I'm just supposed to be chilling on my couch watching TV, oh, no, that's not right, right? So when we're talking about negative emotion, in the context of the times we don't want to be having those emotions, or it isn't healthy for us to have those emotions, there are three things that are involved. And those three things are our thoughts, the feelings themselves, and our behavior. Thoughts, feelings, behavior. Now these three things are connected just like my fingers. If I tug on one, the other two are gonna follow. You can't have one way over here and the other one way over here. No, they all go together. Now I put feelings in the middle on purpose. Remember, thoughts, feelings, behavior. Feelings in the middle on purpose, and not just because my middle finger can express negative emotion. No, but because it's there in the middle and I can't get at it directly. It is what it is, as they say. If I'm mad, I'm mad. If I'm sad, I'm sad. If I'm scared, I'm scared. And it is what it is. And you've probably all had that experience where someone says to you, you just need to calm down, or get over it, or cheer up. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of like, yeah, I'll stab you in the eye with a pencil just for saying that to me. Because it doesn't work, right? And I mean, have you ever had someone say that to you and then you're like, well, by golly, I'm all better now. I wish I would have thought of that and just flipped that switch and now I feel good. No, that doesn't happen, like, ever. And if it did, no one would ever need any kind of help with their emotions at all, because we all would just turn it off and turn it on and do that. So let me tell you this, and hopefully this is freeing for some people to know. It was freeing for me when I realized it. You have no control, that much control right there through that hole, none, of your emotions. None. Not directly. Not directly. Okay, there's a catch there. So it is what it is. However, these two things, my thoughts and my behavior, I can manipulate these. I can change these. I can tug on these. So when I tug on these and change these, the process of changing the emotion follows. This is why it kind of is a process and it takes time, right? We don't suddenly change overnight. It's a process of changing your thinking, which then changes your emotion, which then changes your behavior. Some of you may find yourself stuck in these really negative behavior patterns that you cannot seem to get out of. Well, it's all related, right? It's all connected to our thinking. I feel like I'm fighting a big shadow, and I apologize for that. Maybe I should stand back here. So anyway, this is what counseling's about. We focus here on the thinking part, right? I mean, what are we really doing? Blah, 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 blah. It's not surgery or anything. So we're getting at what's going on in between your ears. And I think the crazy thing is that here I am, I'm talking about what I learned when I was secularly trained, right? This is what the world kind of teaches is the method. But there's a reason that they teach it and why it has had some success. Although I would say the success has been limited. Because God invented it. That's why. God invented it. Now what am I talking about? How did that happen? How did God invent that? Where do I find that? Well, if we look at Scripture, go to 2 Corinthians 10:5. When I first started reading Scripture, I had no idea really what I was doing. I started in the book of Genesis and read forward from there. I don't tend to recommend that method to newbies, and which I was one. And I mean, God used it for my good. He knew what he was doing, but I don't tend to recommend that. We can talk about where you should start some other time. But anyway, once I got to that part of Scripture where it talks about in 2 Corinthians 10:5, I hope that I'm right about that. I'll post below if I'm not. That we are called to take every thought captive. The Lord calls us to take every thought captive. So he already knew that what we think, as a man thinks in his heart, so he is. That's another verse, and I don't know where to quote it off the top of my head, but that's okay. So what we think influences how we feel and then what we do. So taking those thoughts captive, and what does that mean to take a thought captive? It means to arrest it in your mind, to not just assume that it's true and let it have its way with you. So taking those thoughts. So basically, cognitive behavioral therapy teaches that we need to identify irrational thinking and replace it with more rational thinking. Well, the real problem with that idea is that who decides what's rational? I find myself moving here again to avoid being in a big glob of shade. Who decides what's rational? Should the client decide? Well, they're the ones kind of coming in struggling with the issue. They haven't been able to really sort that out, obviously. So then I should decide, right? Because I have all these fancy degrees hanging on the wall and I went to school, so I'm smarter and I should decide, right? No, because you could go to like 10 different smart people with degrees on the wall and they'll have like 10 different, 20 different, 50 different opinions about what's rational. So no, this is where God comes in and his truth comes in and his word comes in, because it can be the ruler, the measuring stick by which we hold our thoughts up to them and we say, does this jive with what God says? Or doesn't it? And if it doesn't, then we need to be working to apply his truth over what we're saying. Now, if we refuse to do that, if we say, no, what I'm saying may not line up with what God's saying, but this is how I feel, and so it's true, then you just kicked God off of his throne and tried to crawl up on there and decide that you are going to be God, because your thoughts, you're basically claiming, are better than his, wiser than his, and that just isn't true. So, and it just leads to misery anyway. His ways lead to life and peace and joy. So that's just a snippet of cognitive behavioral therapy, but from a biblical perspective. God came up with it way before these guys back in the late 40s and 50s. And when I came across that scripture, I was like, all these light bulbs were going off in my head, and realizing that truth is truth, and it's 1 + 1 is 2, and we don't get to mess with the numbers to make it something else. And the truth, as scripture says, will set you free. So that's the goal, right? Freedom, that's the goal. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. And my son keeps reminding me, Mom, you have to tell them to like it, to subscribe it, to click something, like a bell, I don't know, whatever's there, just start pushing on stuff. Unless it's like a down button, don't do that, just move on. If you don't like it, just move on, that's okay. I don't even know if there's a down button, to be honest, but anyway, I hope I'm gonna help people. That's what I want to do. And again, I'd love your feedback. I'd love for you to tell me what you would like me to talk about. If there's topics that you're wanting to know that I might know, and if I don't, I'm gonna work my darndest to find it out and try to help you with it. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.